Hello and welcome to your daily mobile gaming sizzle with me, Jon Jordan. So yesterday I was at the Pocket Gamer Connects conference in London, and it was very interesting. And one thing really kind of stood out for me. So I was in the indie track talking about indie companies, can they compete with the big boys, and just the passion of indie developers just was really quite exciting, quite good to see that the sector is still very buoyant. And one talk in particular stood out. So we can see the logo there of Cupcake Entertainment, Brazilian developer, and its COO Gabriel Sturmer gave a great talk. It was actually could have been quite boring. It was about user acquisition, so that's something a lot of mobile developers talk about. But he was talking about their three games. So they have a game called Letters of Gold, Words of Gold, and Numbers of Gold. They're very specific in the genre they go for. So they do kind of brain puzzle games. I want to be number one in that genre. And he said they spent a lot of time kind of not really understanding UA, and then they spent time kind of looking at UA and then looking at kind of their marketing, looking at their games, and going through a kind of a cycle of only really 2 or 3 months of iterating and seeing what really worked for them. And during that time, they basically tripled their revenue because they started targeting the right people, i.e. people who would spend money in their game, and they really focused on that. And the kind of visual image he kind of that was left in my head was, he said they sit around in their office and they have loads of credit cards, and as soon as they have a tiny bit of money in, they pay off one of the credit cards and then they start using it again to buy users, because they're very focused on return on investment, and they know now where they spend their money. They get, maybe they might spend $2 or $3 buying a user, but they know they can get $4 back from them. So for them, it's a way of building the company. And just had this image of them with all these credit cards, and kind of paying them off and then immediately kind of spending it off again. I wonder what the credit card company thinks. And there is the argument, should you be using credit cards for user acquisition? There's lots of other ways of doing that. But the real kind of passion that Gabriel had came through the fact that they'd learned themselves how to do good user acquisition campaigns, and they had that kind of knowledge internally from basically from nothing to running their own company. And the one thing he did say was, I have to say they are a very ambitious company, so they want to be number one in their genre. They also want to be $1 billion turnover company. These things certainly don't happen by themselves, so they're very aggressive in that growth. And he said for companies who are on that route, so not all companies want to grow that aggressively, but he's saying companies that do want to do that, you should look at what money you need to survive, to pay the bills, and everything else you should reinvest in what's going to grow your company. So for them at the moment it's UA. For other things it might be product teams or whatever. But that was very exciting, I think, to see the passion that he had in that, and very kind of good advice, I think, for people who certainly are starting out, and certainly for kind of small indies who think we haven't got scale, we can't compete with the big boys. What you can do though is really aggressively grow what you want to grow as a company. It may not be revenue. And the other thing to remember is when you're competing with the big boys, you always kind of think, oh, they've got lots of people. Those people probably aren't as passionate as you are about the games. Another thing is the big companies is obviously they can change their strategic direction very quickly. So Disney Mobile, the case in point perhaps at the moment. Disney Mobile, part of a massive company, and then suddenly Disney Mobile didn't exist anymore. Disney decided they didn't want to do mobile games anymore, and basically all those talented people didn't have a job. So the one thing for the indies, be very passionate about what you do, and have fun doing it. And yes, I think you have a good chance still if you choose the right battles of beating the big boys.